Okay, we are back, folks.
Who has a better studio, your community place or the school?
The school is set up with very nice brand new kilns. It's laid out better. I just did something really cool. In the studio, I'm the first person in the history of that place to get it reset with all brand new electric kilns. It was a challenge. I had to find a way to ask people for money. And I asked all the renters for money and got like almost $5,000. Boom. That was awesome. So there's things about that are really alluring. And the school, the Genesee Pottery, is in an old firehouse building. And so there's something of that romantic thing. As long as you don't go to the basement and see the electrical cords sitting in water, then you think like, ooh, this is really nice and old-timey.
So since we have some drawing students, we talk about if you do some drawing in your practice?
Do I do some drawing in my practice? I draw some things. I do a lot of very geometric, very simple drawings to understand how I'm going to cut molds apart. They look like drafting, or they look like a blueprint of something. And then they look like a crazy man did the blueprint, right? Because I really like neon green and pink and stuff, so I've like drawn the lines in pink and green, and then I'm all over the place. But when I'm actually drawing, I'm drawing with Rhino. Does anyone know what Rhino is? Sort of. Rhinoceros is a 3D or a rapid prototyping tool that's basically a computer-aided drawing program, right? So I can draw a profile, revolve it, cut it up into little sections, stick them back together, and I can see in the digital sphere my work, right? It takes me so long to make a thing that I just need to see it in advance to know that it has some merit. It takes a long time and it's expensive. So even a sketch, I don't have a strong enough hand to sketch what I need to see. So I really just need to go there. But I also do sketches when I'm at different stages, when I'm trying to play with a form and I'm really trying to understand the curve of some big bottle. I'm just like, when I'm trying to get there, I'll do sketches on paper, just with the arm, with the shoulder. I'll just try to like find that line, and then I'll try to replicate that. So I don't do any, I'm not trying to reinvent Guernica, but I am trying to understand my work. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, so this bat is jiggling. This is no good.
What's the problem when the bat jiggles?
When the bat jiggles, it's rocking back and forth a little bit, each point being off center from where you're centering it, right? So then as you're going up the form, you're kicking it off center just a little bit every rotation, and it makes it bad.
You threw a little bit of clay underneath it to make it not
Yep.
jiggle?
I put a little bit of clay in there, as stiff as I could find on in my surrounding area, and I tried to push it around that. It sticks underneath the hole, and it also goes around the bat pins, so it just gives it a little more. Yeah, it might still shake a little bit, but I think for this I'm gonna do something at the bottom here. I'm not gonna have that belly that I keep doing. We'll do something else.
Are you more into functional pottery?
Am I? Well, no. I'm much more into sculpture. I'm much more into vessel. I happen to use anachronistic, functionally oriented objects as subjects, right? I use the perfume bottle, the jewelry box, the urn, the scotch decanter. I use very specific forms in the history of utilitarian pottery, but I don't think that they're pots. I use them for a different reason. And I don't often make bowls. But that's not to say that for a long time I didn't study dramatically to understand pots. And there's a part of me that will always be extremely interested in what a pot is and what a pot can be. And so a part of that is really understanding what pots exist around you. Does that make sense? I'm thinking about some sort of juice cruet thing. Because we just had this juice, right? Gotta put... cool. It's all about saying something about ceramics, like, I don't make functional things, and then saying, I'm gonna make a juice cruet.
Do you use the word you make?
I use all the cups that I make frequently. I force people to make the cups or use the cups that I make. Nobody, I have an old rice jar that I use, and you have a lot of old rice jars of mine that you use. It's important that if you're putting the thing out and it's supposed to have some relationship to function, it's important that it actually works. Right? It can't sort of work. This is why I don't make teapots, because the study of teapots is more profound and determined than even I am willing to be. The study of understanding how something drips is very serious. It's no joke. And it should take your life over until you figure it out, if that's what you're into.
On your next piece, can you make something with a long, thin neck?
Yes, I most certainly can. This would be the perfect time to have a really nice credit card that I could cut up. Anyone? Any credit cards? Okay. Starve me of my artistic intention.
I have one.
Do we have a hole punch here?
Not in the classroom, no. We can probably chase one down.
Do you want your credit card cut up?
I just wanted hole punched. I guess I'll use it later. But thank you. Your willingness to give is noted by everyone. It's wonderful. Notice I've left a really big, thick lip. That can only mean one thing, folks. It's picture time.
Will you talk a little bit about how you balance
I don't. I work long days, a lot of them. I know that Monday through Friday are pretty much tied up, being somewhere between 7 in the morning and 8 in the morning. I'm at work until 10 or 11 at night. So that's like, I have to do that in order to work 2 full-time jobs, right? And so that means that Saturday and Sunday I can do the same for myself, where I can work and work and work in the studio, or I can do it after hours. After hours on a studio night. But really, I don't know, that's a difficult question. It's just so hard to balance these two things, a job and making stuff. So I realized that a part of it is being very focused with my time. Every moment that I'm at work, I'm always like, I never stop thinking and trying to balance things and setting goals. So I always have a list, and I'm always working towards that list. And if I can get an hour in the studio, it's better than no time. So in grad school, I always called it the 1 hour burst. It was the best thing. If you can get 1 hour of focused, dedicated time a day, then you can really make things happen. Sometimes 1 hour is a more thought-provoking and functional amount of time than 6 hours. If you're talking to your friends and checking out what your hair looks like and all of these various things that kind of go along with making stuff somehow. But I've realized that just being very present in the moment is a large part of balancing a life of working and a life of making things. And I just honestly give up the time sleeping, right? When I the morning before I came here, I was up really early making molds. The night before I came here, I was up really late balancing the school thing, right? So I just said, okay, well, I'll sleep 4 hours, then I'll get up and I'll make the molds, right? So I'm trying to train myself to just not have to sleep 8 hours, and it's worked for quite some time. Then I crash.
You should look into, there's like a meditation technique that allows you to, you would have to look into it because I can't give you details, but allows you to like sleep for 20 minutes and get that like 20 minutes or 30 minutes of REM sleep in, and you end up only sleeping like 2 complete hours every 24 or something like that, but you have, your body gets what you need because as soon as you fall asleep, you're instantly REM. It's cool, it saves you a lot of time.
Well, do you know, they did a Seinfeld episode about that. They did a Seinfeld episode and everything was groovy for a while, but he started going nuts. I forget how it ended, but it didn't end well for Kramer. It was Kramer who decided he was going to do that. Mm-hmm. I've found that when I take naps in the middle of the day, my body thinks that I'm going crazy. So it takes that hour to get out of that and not feel like I'm going to die. And so I would rather just not sleep at all, which is horribly unhealthy. And then sometimes I crash. Like the day before I got here, I had to teach a class early in the morning, hold a workshop in the afternoon, teach a class until 9:30 at night, and then do some paperwork, and then come home and pack and get ready. And I called Lori and I said, I just don't feel good, something's not right. And she's like, well, have you slept lately? Apparently I hadn't. She's like, maybe you should not stay up all night before you get on the plane. But this is how I lived my life, I guess. That's just one of those things. And at the heart of it, I'm just completely unwilling to budge in the studio. I don't care about selling this stuff, and I try hard to make it move forward in the world. I just don't care about any of that stuff. I have to make it, and I have to continue to make it. I will always do that. That's the one consistent thing in my life that I like in terms of working. So where am I going with that? If you really want to understand ceramics, you kind of have to have this mentality, because I'm not alone. Sasha and Jones and I were in the studio late last night. It's fun. You really have to want to kick it out. Sorry, I've been talking and not working. Okay, so we have this thing. Could you imagine putting juice in this? Is this juice?
Pop that around your hands. It's like
A white smoothie-ish material? Yes?
Do you have to put special finish on it to make it okay to drink and eat out of?
Yes. You have to fire these things in a kiln twice. The first time is what's called a bisque firing. And that just gets it so that the clay can accept glaze, essentially without deteriorating and breaking. Then you fire it again, which makes the glaze mature into a glass, which then creates a protective coating. You could just fire porcelain up to cone 10 and drink out of it. That's cool. You can do that. You can do a lot of things, you know, but you might die after a while. But we all die somehow, man. Okay, so I'm gently moving back and forth, lifting this thing. Who's going to say it? What's up with that, Peter? What's up with that, Peter? Great. I'm lifting this lip, right, so that I can get a little more action out of it. I can make it do something, right? And that's my plan. That's what I'm talking about. So I'm pulling, and I'm never pulling to touch the top of this circle. That's very important. Can't mess that up. I'm pushing around it. Notice how it's stepping up a notch. As always, clean it up. Now here's the moment where we make it or we break it every time. And I don't really do this often, so I might break it. But whatevs. Fingers there, and I start rubbing it outward.
Do you have to alter your thickness to be able to do this?
Yeah, the lip is, as I said, very thick. Now I prefer, if I'm going to make a picture, if I'm going to make a picture, generally I won't do this. I won't put a little spout on there. I'll build a spout, and it'll be extravagant and out of control. I could actually make one right now. Do we have a little rolling pin?
Yeah. Enjoy your demo very much.
I'm excited. Thank you. People who are used to me don't get excited about my demos anymore, so I'm excited. People, they just go, oh, here goes Pincus again. He's talking about the bottles or something. It's true. Righteous, thank you. Oh, do we have one more thing? Do we have... I suppose I can use this masonite bed, thank you. Okay.
Do you have a favorite vessel to throw?
A favorite vessel to throw? I think that the cup is the most meaningful vessel. Something about that, when I just threw that, hit me in a way that the rest of these didn't. It was like a moment back where it was hard for me to not go. It's like good feeling, you know? Because cups, within a cup, you need to be able to embody the whole thing about your work. What you need to look at the visual things in your work and the ideas behind it, and it all needs to come through in a cup. That's a lofty challenge. And all of that could come through in one little profile line or one little squeeze or something if you're really present at the moment. And so that's why cups are exciting. I also like throwing very large bottles. but that's more towards my work, towards the mold making work. So it's no longer I'm removing all the detail and all the information. It's just a very straightforward line that extends upward. So a little different. A lot of things I just not actually that. After you throw a bunch and it's still difficult. 13 years later, it's not always that exciting to step onto the wheel because it's not defined in the way that other things can be. It's not. When I make a mold, I know exactly what's going to happen. And on the wheel, there's a chance I have no idea. I could be making anything. I don't know. Does that make sense? Okay. So, I'm just going to cut something, fold it up, and play with it. Does that sound good? This almost looks like a crazy skull head guy, right? It looks like if you put dots on it, it would be one of those misfits symbols things, right? Oops. So, with my hyper thinner, I really like that piece of paper. I need to learn this stuff. Slapping this down. Now, it's important to see how gentle I am with that. I'm not trying to make I'm not trying to do that with it. I'm trying to just round out the edges. You don't need to slip and score for objects like this. I'm darting this thing very quickly. I'll make this one so it would never possibly pour. There might be something artsy about that. Right, so just quickly playing around, I could sketch an idea for this thing that would far exaggerate what it could be. Let's see something else. By the way, I'm being silly. I'm just experimenting here. Does anyone have any questions right now? It's a quiet room out there. A mat? Yeah, it looks like my nose, kind of.
Do you play with any mediums other than clay?
I think printmaking is really neat. I was a professional welder, steel fabricator for quite some time. I used to play a ton with glass blowing. I like painting walls in houses. What else do I do? Wood. I do a lot of woodworky type of stuff.
For carving or like furniture?
More sculptural things, just playing around with it. I also like to do home improvements, like build decks and stuff with wood. I think that's pretty fun. I just like to use the tools. Any way I can figure out to use them sounds good to me.
Where did you
Sound handy
blow,
to have around the house.
I'm very handy to have around the house.
where did you blow glass at?
I don't anymore. When I was in undergrad, I blew glass, and there's a place in Rochester called Moorfire Glass, but it just got too expensive, you know?
Has working with those other materials affected what you're doing in clay?
Absolutely. We'll talk about that in the lecture, because it's easy to see. It's easy when I'm starting to play around with this stuff. And you've seen that picture on the wall. You kind of have a sense of 2 cups that I've made. When you can see a long trajectory of the work that I've produced alongside jobs that I've had and other things that I've made, it kind of makes more sense why I would make the work that I make. I'm going to do a Tim Burton-y thing here.
You know, there's just a big Tim Burton show out here.
I heard. Tim Burton's pretty cool, man.
Any of you guys make it up for that?
Did you?
Doesn't it end on the 31st?
I thought it ended last weekend.
Really?
Yeah.
You guys know who Tim Burton is, right?
Yes.
You guys saw Beetlejuice, right?
Yeah.
Okay. This is my culture shock check. When they start telling me they haven't seen Beetlejuice, it's time for my AARP card. I'm getting nervous. That's right, isn't it? A couple of months ago when I was TAing a class, I said something about Outcast, and someone said, "Oh, ew, that's old." I was like, "Old?" They were when I was in middle school. Oh no. Okay. Messing around here, but I think this Tim Burton-y one is going to pour some good juice. Right? Right? It makes sense somehow. Okay, back to the wheel.